And you were there for 6.5 years, you said,
Yes.
right?
I left in June of 57.
No.
63.
63. Yeah, you wouldn't have been
Wait a
there
minute.
yeah.
Wait a minute. Of 63.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, 63.
And you were an art instructor the whole time?
Yes,
Okay.
as well as Spanish, as well as art history, as well as...
Are you the one that taught the Spanish to the, that would have been, were you the one that also taught Spanish to the Cuban immigrants that had come here?
No, that's Sister Kenneth.
Oh, okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify
Mary
that.
Kay.
So, how did you get to Barry?
Well, in the mail after Christmas Day, I received an envelope, and the return address was Adrian, and inside was one of those little cards that we got when we were sent on mission, only this wasn't the time to receive that. But anyhow, on the card was saying, you are now missioned to Barry College. Happy Christmas in red.
What was your reaction?
Well, I've only been here 4 months. Why am I being changed? What did I do?
And why were you changed?
Because one of the art teachers at Barry left Barry. And she was the one who was so good at sculpture and metalwork. Now, the only experience I had with metalwork was that my dad was a dentist, and he did his own lab work. And I used to go as a youngster and watch him do these things. He did his centrifugal casting, he did his vulcanizing and all of that. So I knew what centrifugal casting was, but I certainly never was taught it or shown the whereabouts of it. But I was told that one of Sister's projects was to be the casting of the Laudari medal, which then that year was to be given to one of the co-founders. Well, I had not done any casting. So I found out from one of the sisters at Barry that her brother-in-law was a dentist, and she had asked him if he had any information on centrifugal casting. So yes, she got a little booklet from him, from the Kerr Manufacturing Company. And using that book, I somehow came up with the way to do the casting.
You taught yourself out of a small book how to do the
Right.
casting. And
Right.
what had you been doing up into that point? What was your, what kind?
I was teaching at Muldoon High School in Rockford, Illinois. I was teaching math and Spanish and religion.
But before that.
No art
But
whatsoever?
before that.
Yes. But so you had not been an art instructor at all, though. Did you have any background in art whatsoever, or?
Well, yes, I had gone through the studio, and then after graduating that year from the studio in 1946, I was sent to help finish the Colegio Santo Domingo. And when I went there, all the buildings were wide open, no windows, no doors, goats in the lobby, things like that. So we started school classes maybe a couple months after I arrived. And I took on the art classes for those who wanted it. We ran two types of class down there, the American system and the Dominican Republic system. So most of our students were daughters of the diplomats who came to school in chauffeured cars and whose chauffeurs got out and saluted while our flags went up, you know. And it was a military government.
Well, what a contrast from that to Barry University then.
Yeah, but see, I had that 4 months at Rockford. And the nice thing about that was that my mother and dad lived in Galena, Illinois, which was only 67 miles down the pike.
So you were really pulled from a brand new situation and from your parents,
Right.
to go down to South Florida to teach at Barry
Well,
College.
I had been at Santo Domingo, so I mean, we never saw anybody
For
in
11
Santo
years.
Domingo.
What do you remember of Barry? What are your thoughts if you think back to those 6.5 years you spent there? What strikes you?
Well, I think one of my favorite memories of Barry was the Culture Series, you know, and there was a lot of controversy about that, and I remember being at a faculty meeting in the rotunda. I don't know what the rotunda is anymore. But I remember saying to Sister Mary Alice, who was then acting director or president or what, well, you know, it's my experience that unless you spend money, you're not going to make money. So where that put me, I don't quite know. Now,
What was controversial about a culture series?
well, because they didn't feel it was supporting itself. Some didn't feel that.
And what did the culture series consist of? What were some of the programs offered?
Oh gosh, I knew you'd ask that. Do you realize how long ago this is? That's over 53 years ago.
But I assume it was lectures, maybe some music, perhaps readings.
Operettas, you know, and there were always scouts there from television programs and Hollywood and stuff like that to hear Marie Carroll's productions. She was excellent, just excellent. She did things like Brigadoon and, you know. But anyhow, where were we on this medal?
Well, so you had to learn on the spot at Barry.
Yes.
And why did Barry want specifically a metalwork professor to be teaching metalworks?
Why didn't they?
Why did they?
I wasn't a metalsmith.
Right, but they wanted you to come down there to do that for them, correct? Why did they want that so much? Why was that a vacancy?
I don't think that entered the picture at all. I think that when I got down there, that's what was in the plans for me.
And what did you do? How did you start off? What was the metalwork classes like then in the late 50s, early 60s?
I didn't teach metalwork at first. I had to learn it first.
So when did you start teaching it? A couple of years there?
I taught art, mostly graphics, serigraphy. Serigraphy was a big item.
What is that? I'm sorry.
Silk screening. Silk screening is a fine art, not just, you know, stencils.
Yeah.
And I had several students who were extremely good at it. They were capable of initiating a project and then seeing it through to the end, you know, and not saying in the middle, I can't, you know, it's too much for me.
What was the student population like then? How would you describe the students in general at Barry?
I think they were enthusiastic. I think we were a close community.
Close or closed?
Close.
Okay.
You know, the kids would, the students would come over to the art studio and work at night with me. There's much I can say, but I don't want to say it, you know.
Why not?
Well,
I'm not going to put you on the spot if you don't
Yeah.
want to, but do you think, why, what you say might offend someone, or do you think it's...
Right. Yeah. The students and the faculty were close. That didn't, I'm not including the administration. Okay. So that's why I don't want to say any more.
Did you enjoy your time at Berry?
Very much.
Was it all Catholic students at the time?
No, there were, you know, a majority of Catholic students, but not everybody was Catholic. I can tell you a little story about that. I had to take over the sister's duties, which meant her duties with the students at night. We always said put them to bed, you know. But there were 2 students in the senior dorm. Now, I was coming here mid-year. All classes had begun and were well on their way, and I was coming as a substitute for a well-liked sister, okay? And anyhow, one of my duties was to go through the dorm at night, or before night, and get the students over to chapel for whatever service was going on. So I had these 2 students that were, you know, they were kidding all the time. And they say, we're not going, sister, we're not Catholics, we ain't Catholics. And I said, okay, well then come down to the lounge and study down there where you're supposed to, you know. Oh. So they said, we're Catholics, we're going.
Where was the, you said that was the senior dorm. What was that called?
That was Rosa Mystica. That was the first dorm on your left as you entered the main entrance. You know, the main entrance and the chapel at the end. And Rosa Mystica was here.
That's Kelly House now.
Now it's Kelly House. Oh yeah, they changed some of the names, you know, because of I think founders or
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to leave Berry, or was it another mission posting for you?
Oh no, I was assigned to go to work with Sister Kevin up at the newly founded, yet to be finished, St. Dominic College in St. Charles, Illinois. So Sister Kevin and I were the only 2 there for I don't know how many months, ordering everything that went into that college and setting up the art studio and studios. I had 5 of them. So that's...
You said one of the reasons they particularly wanted the metal work at Berry was to work on what? They had a project in mind? It slipped my mind.
The sister who left, let's call her Sister Mary, had this project of the Laudari medal to do. And since she left, I was the substitute. So...
And that was recognized, wasn't it? Professionally, your work was honored and recognized?
Yes. Mm-hmm. But
could you be a little more forthcoming and a little less modest?
Rita had her doctorate at that time in art, and
I think
from Santo Domingo.
exactly, and you had taught university students there.
We had, at the Colegio, we had not only grade school and high school boarders, but also university students who lived at the Colegio and went to the university. And I was told to teach three-dimensional geometry. Had I ever had it? No. But I was told to teach it to them, and the only help I had in that was Mr. Ruiz was the contractor and also the father of two of our students. So he had a little book on three-dimensional geometry, and it was in French.
Of course.
So I plowed through the French. Now, it helped me that I had taken 4 years of French in high school.
But you had been teaching Spanish
Yes.
prior to coming to Barry's.
But you
Yeah.
had to learn Spanish by the seat of her pants down in Dominican Republic, and was given a crew of 40 workmen
Yeah.
to build this building, and learned the Spanish from them. Now, did you have something to do with the chapel at Barry?
Yes, I
And
designed it.
And yes, and I wanted to say about Saks Fifth Avenue. I mean, projects like that.
No, are you talking about Barry or are you talking about the Colegio?
Barry.
Oh, the
What did you have
Colegio.
to do with the chapel at Barry?
No, I didn't do that at
No,
Barry.
but
I
had you
did a
nothing?
little bit of
Yeah.
touch-up in there.
Okay.
But then I was brought down to say what I would do with it. And, of course, I went to Rambush.
Okay.
And that's
Gives you a pretty good idea.
what was the campus store you said that you had
Oh.
to manage? What was
Well, that was one of those little projects that you got added to your list of classes and stuff. And Sister Jerome was in charge of the store. It was a little, it wasn't as big as this studio. It was a little room with a little storeroom in back of it. When I came, Sister Mary Alice decided that I would be a good one to be in charge of the campus store. Well, that was neat in one way because when Thompson Hall went up or was designed, I was able to say what I wanted in the campus store there.
and what
So.
did you want in the campus store?
Well, to make it more like a store, with it had show windows and jewelry display units that rotated and checkout counters, and it was run like a business.
Was any of your jewelry in there?
Oh no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And this was in Thompson Hall, so they had this store in Thompson Hall.
Yes.
And it wasn't a bookstore, as they have on college campuses now. It was a...
No, it was just off the lobby.
It's where the IST, the business center, is now.
Oh.
And I think I remember
Yes.
seeing the windows like that a long time
The big
ago.
windows, yes. I think it's our business center, like where we go to mail and packages come in boxes and stuff. But they do have
Probably.
big glass windows there in Thompson Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Rita's professional through the teeth, and when she sets something up, she sets it up gorgeously and professionally. And that's where she got into some of the scrapes at Barry, because Karen had another project in Palm Beach.
Well, yeah, she had this other project that the director of the art studio said to me, this is also your task. And it was to dress a window in Saks Fifth Avenue in Palm Beach. It was a street side showcase window. And to design it and advertise the play Hamlet that Sister Marie Carroll was putting on at Barry. So it was a, you know, a shared thing. But I used some of the methods that I had learned in Santo Domingo for doing that project because I had nothing to work with. You know, I was supposed to find anything I needed in the studio. Well, I wouldn't walk through the studio and you wouldn't see very much.
The art studio at Barry was limited, you're saying then?
Right. So,
I'm sort of curious, but how did the window look? How did you do Hamlet for Saks Fifth Avenue in Palm Beach County so people would go to
don't
Miami
ask me
Shores?
those questions, please.
You must remember something about the storefront.
You were supposed to just find stuff to make this great window out of, and you said you must be kidding. I mean, I need money, and I need supplies, and I want to do a good job on this, which it ended up being.
So were these the sort of scrapes you had at Barry you referred to? Were these the sort of scrapes you had at Barry that you referred to?
Right. So.
Who was the president when you were there? Who was the president of Barry when you were there?
Who was the president?
The president, yeah.
Acting president was Sister Mary Alice.
Acting, and then she would have been acting for, would have been Dorothy Brown?
I think so.
Sister Dorothy Brown, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rita had done these in Santo Domingo for 11 years. These huge outdoor pageants and lots of, I mean, real creatures and Christmas plays and stuff like that. I mean, big time.
We used the entire
lighting,
campus as the stage for
she's made all our
pageants.
models here. She's done all our drafting here. This is all self-taught. And quite obviously, she's the modest one among us. But so she brought this professionalism to create a studio at Barry, which she ended up doing.
You were probably too modest to say this, but would you say you were sort of in the avant-garde? You were the one that sort of transformed the art department into perhaps to some degree what it is today? That you brought new ideas?
There were two of us in the art department, and I think that the classes I taught, you know, in serigraphy and graphics, were enticing to the students. I mean, they liked it. If you don't like a subject, you're not going to do well in it, no matter what. And so my students were over at night working in the studios. Anyhow, I had good rapport with the students.
Because they chose to work at night.
Yes, yes.
What was it like being both a nun, a sister, and a PhD back in the late 50s? That made you somewhat unusual for the most part for women at that time, right?
I didn't think of it that way.
What about now? How do you think of it?
Well, I see all these people using doctor in front of their name, and I thought, gee, what for?
You weren't known as doctor?
Oh, no. Mm-mm. No.
Sister.
Adrians don't do that.
They don't.
Rita.
So you simply Sister
There are
Rita.
so many.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on for years.
Sister Nadine said to us earlier today that she thought one of the reasons maybe some of the women joined or became nuns was because they had opportunities that most women would not have had back in that time. Do you think do you agree with that?
That might be true in the case of some, but like I attended Adrian Dominican schools from kindergarten, grade school, high school, you know. So I was Adrian Dominican educated from the word go.
And it never occurred to you then to do anything else?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The sisterhood, if you will. There are not as many women joining now. There's a paucity really of nuns.
Mm-hmm.
What does that portend for Catholic universities like Barry? Is that going to be a bad thing in the long run? Will they survive fine without it? What do you think about that in general?
Well, I think if there's a core group of sisters or associates, the associates are beginning to come into their own now and take offices, I think it will survive because the sisters will exude the principles of Saint Dominic that we go by, and that will influence the faculty.
Do you think it would be unfortunate for Catholic universities if the trend decreases dramatically? Will that be to the detriment maybe of a college or a university? Do you think especially Catholic universities need that core that you bring to it?
I do.
Do you know, or do you wonder why more women aren't drawn nowadays to it?
No, they're not drawn because their opportunities out in the world are so much better than they used to be. And we're living in a time when people are not the majority of people are not inspired to give their all to the other, and I think that when young women come to us now and they've been educated already and they live here, well, spend time with us here, and they actually see the workings of how we live, and I think that's what draws them to this particular, I'm not saying that draws them to religious life, it draws them to this particular group.
To the Adrian Dominican group as opposed to the other.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe perhaps today's younger women aren't ready for the sacrifices.
Right.
Because it is a sacrifice.
Right.
You give up a lot,
but
I think you would say you get probably more than you give up. One last question, which when you were at Barry, what did the campus look like? I'm trying to, the number of buildings that were there. What do you remember? You said Thompson Hall was going.
No, when you went in to the main entrance, you had the rotunda and that whole academic building and the science building.
So that's Adrian on the right.
And I even designed the path that goes from the rotunda over to, what was it called? The motel.
The villa across the street?
The villa, yeah.
Oh, the villa was there then? On Northeast 2nd Avenue?
Yeah, it was a motel, and we bought it.
It still looks like a motel.
Yeah, probably. And next door to the motel, students lived in there. Next door to that was what we call the Stevens house.